Cool. Well, thank you so much, Melinda. Very, very honored to be here. I remember all the tech inclusion events from back in the galvanized days. For anyone who's been in the community for a long time, so it's an honor to be able to present here and be able to contribute to the community. So I'm going to be talking a lot about community today. Why don't we kick off and have everyone just type in the chat, what is your favorite community? What's your favorite online community? Could be offline from back in the pre-COVID days. Just share your favorite community in there. We'll get some discussion going. Cool. So I'm David Spinks. I'm going to be talking about community strategy. So how businesses are adapting, how they're building community today, given everything that's happening. And so, all right. So a little bit about me. So I'm the founder of CMX. We started CMX about 6 years ago as a conference. We have local chapters in over 60 cities around the world. We publish research, we develop training programs, all with the goal of helping businesses build community. And so it's a pretty new space for some of you. Maybe you haven't heard of companies building community, or maybe you are interested in it. Maybe some of you are actually the head of community or the community manager at your companies, and you're also thinking about how to bring DEI into your company from a community perspective. And so I've been working in community for over 10 years, was a head of community for a number of different startups. I had started a couple different companies and ultimately created CMX because ironically, everyone who was building community for businesses didn't have their own communities to be able to come together and support each other. And so we started CMX in 2014. We've now hosted 10 conferences. This was our last conference in 2019. We had over 1,000 people come down to California from all over the world. And last year, CMX was acquired by a company called Bevy. So now we are one team, still two individual brands. Bevy powers basically was the in-person event programs for communities, and now in-person and virtual community programs. And we develop the education and training and research all for the industry as well. So now I'm the VP of community at Bevy. I lead all of our community efforts, and I run everything at CMX. And as Melinda mentioned, we just hosted our first big virtual event. We had about 2,800 people in attendance. And we are learning live with everyone else. We've done a lot of smaller virtual events, but this was our first big swing where we tried to replicate a lot of what you would see in a conference, in a virtual conference. And it was actually incredible. I was really surprised at how well the virtual conference could go. And we're hosting events all the time. We have over 20 to 30 events per month, all on community from all over the world and time zones everywhere. So you go to cmxhub.com anytime and find that. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what the community industry looked like before coronavirus, and then I'll talk about how things are evolving now. And so before this whole pandemic, we actually saw that community is becoming this really, really critical part of every business. And so these are some stats from First Round's 2019 State of Startups report that came out at the end of last year. This studies thousands and thousands of startups at all different sizes. So not just startups, the small company, but actually big startups. And so just to read off some of these stats, so 80% of startups are investing in building a customer community at that point. 28.3% said that it's a moat and it's critical to the success of their company. And so we're seeing community for the last 10 years. If you've been in the space as long as I have, we've kind of always been like trying to communicate why community is valuable and trying to explain why this is something that would be useful for businesses to invest in, why it's important. But it felt like we were kind of banging our head against the wall trying to get people to get it. It really seems like in the last year, there's been a huge shift towards companies investing heavily into community programs. And if you're still kind of wondering what that means for business to build community, I'm going to talk about that as well and help you understand exactly what that looks like for a business to build community. But we saw this in our own research as well. And so we publish the Community and Industry Trends Report every year at CMX. And so over 80% in our studies said community is critical to our company's mission. Over 80%, that's about 85%, said community has had a positive impact on our organization's objectives over the last 12 months. Over 80% said I haven't seen increased interest from community from other departments in in the organization. So marketing, sales, other departments within the organization is becoming more interested in how community can help them grow. And then over 60% said our organization will be increasing our investment in community over the next year. So again, seeing a lot of really good data that the industry is growing. Businesses are investing in community more and more as its own department alongside marketing, sales, design, everything else that a business does. Community is becoming a core part of every business. And they're not just starting, they're not just getting it off the ground right now. In our study, 59% of the companies that that filled out our report are already scaling an existing community. So companies have been investing in this stuff for a while now, and now they're really looking at how do we scale our events, how do we scale our online groups, our online communities, in order to be able to bring it to the full scale of our company. And before coronavirus, most programs were hybrid. They're both online and offline. So 58% of community programs were both online and offline. 38% were only focused on online and digital. 4% were only offline. Obviously now 100% are focused on online and not doing offline because you literally cannot do offline right now. And so everyone's really had to shift all of those offline efforts. And a lot of companies are doing conferences, meetups, events, discussion groups that are all being shifted to virtual for the foreseeable future. And so community has been fundamentally shifting how businesses function. It's been this massive opportunity and I think a responsibility that companies have to be more mission driven, to be more community driven. We've seen, all the stats of millennials only want to work at companies that are purpose driven and are driven by values. And I think community is aligning very strongly with that, right? To be a community driven company is essentially to be a mission driven company, a values driven company. And then to actually build community, that's where you actually put in the work to actually bring people together. And so let me explain a little bit what that means and what it means for business to build community. So a community is essentially an extension of your team and an amplifier of impact that a business has. And so if you think of any team within your organization, could be your HR team, it could be your sales team, it could be marketing, design, product, it could be the folks who are focused on DEI. Community is essentially a way of amplifying the output of that team by coordinating the people who want to contribute, who want to be involved, the most loyal members of your community, giving them the opportunity to contribute. And what a community team does is they facilitate that contribution from their community members. All right. So a simple way of thinking about it is to build an audience. What does a business do? They help people. To build a community, you want to help people help each other. All right, so this is the fundamental shift. It's instead of us as a company creating the product, creating the marketing, doing everything ourselves, and then just blasting it out to people. Now we're saying we are going to find the people who want to help each other, who want to give value to each other, and we're going to create spaces and facilitate these programs so that people can help each other, so that they can build value for each other. And you can apply this to any part of a business. So customer success. What is customer success? It's teaching your customers. It's giving them training, education on how to better use your product, on how to accelerate in their career and grow in their career, right? You're teaching your customers. Community-driven customer success is helping customers teach each other. So creating spaces where customers can create education for each other, develop training for each other, speak at events like this. They become the experts that help each other become more successful. Or take field marketing, right? Which essentially are events. You host events for your customers. That is field marketing. It's been around since, the beginning of business. Community-powered field marketing is empowering community members to host events for each other. All right, so instead of you as an organization hosting every event, organizing the venue, organizing the speakers, organizing the food, you're finding those people on a local level who, or virtually, right? Now companies are actually powering massive virtual programs and running hundreds and hundreds of events per month by empowering their community to self-organize. And so you're able to reach a scale when you're community powered, when you're community driven, that you never could as a traditional business. Because if you have 2 people on your field marketing team, how many events can those 2 people host per month? That's the bottleneck. But when it's a community-driven program, now it's those 2 people and the hundreds or thousands of local ambassadors that can take that playbook, take that formula, and run with it. And so business in its simplest form, a business exists to create value for people. We hope, right? That's what we want them to exist, to create value for people. And what is community? It's empowering people to create value for each other. And so a community-driven business is essentially saying, instead of just us having to create all the value for everyone, we're going to empower our customers, our advocates, our most loyal members to create value for each other. So when we talk about what it means for business to build community, that's essentially what we're talking about. We're talking about these programs where you are organizing people, giving them that sense of belonging, giving them the sense of connection, and then the folks in that community who are the most motivated, who want to contribute, who want to get involved. It's figuring out how can they get involved in a way that's both serving the community and helping your business achieve its goals. So a couple of really good examples of this. Duolingo is one example. Has anyone used Duolingo? Type in the comments. What language have you learned on Duolingo? So Duolingo is the largest language learning platform. I'm learning Hebrew and Spanish on there. I'm learning. I haven't been good about keeping up with it, but I'm trying my best. They have 300 million active users. If anyone remembers all those old Rosetta Stone commercials, this massive company with lots of employees, never reached anything close to the size and the amount of content in the community that Duolingo has, because Duolingo is completely community driven. And so they have 80 courses, and I think over 95% of those courses are actually developed by the community. So again, instead of Duolingo saying, we have to be the experts, we're going to teach you we're going to teach you Spanish, we're going to teach you German. They created what they called, it's called their accelerator, I think. But it's basically just like these guide rails that the community can contribute the content that makes up the courses. So that's how they developed all those courses. And they had a team of 2 people running 2,500 events per month, all local events all over the world. 2 people, 2,500 events a month. And that's all powered by the community. Or we can look on the B2B side with Salesforce. So the Salesforce forums answer most of the questions that any customers have. 84% of the responses of the forum are peer-to-peer. So they don't have to have employees answering everything. They have all these amazing experts in the community who are answering questions for each other. They also have their success program with the Trailblazer community, which has over 1,000 local chapters. Again, community run, hosting these local events, bringing people together. And of course, everyone knows Dreamforce, especially if you're in San Francisco, the whole city gets shut down for the 170,000 conference. But even that conference is a community platform where they invite the community to create events, to speak, to contribute to content. It's a huge collaborative effort. So there was already an unprecedented responsibility and opportunity for businesses to build community. And we've been on this huge trend towards community-driven business for some time now. And now we have coronavirus. And so a lot of things are kind of turned upside down. And I'm going to speak a little bit to kind of where we see things going, because everyone's kind of adapting very quickly right now. Get all of our events online. All online communities are seeing a lot of boosts in traffic right now because people, for one, all have common challenges right now, and 2, they can only get that help online. And so online forums are growing a lot, online events are booming. But I want everyone who's thinking about community to not just be reactive and what it's going to look like in the next 3 to 6 months, kind of to Andy's point. If it was just 3 months, then fine, we can adapt and then switch back. But this is going to have long-term effects. And so I want to speak a little bit to where we think things are going so you can plan for the future. And by the way, if you have any questions, I'm at David Spinks on Twitter. I will answer all of your questions on there. I don't know if we'll have time to get to them here, but just drop me your questions at David Spinks on Twitter, and I'll answer all your questions there. So what will the future look like in the post-COVID kind of environment? Or how do you skate to where the puck is going? Or how do you not go to where we are now, but figure out where things are going in the future? So one, I think smaller events will return first, right? We're going to have the smaller meetups. I mean, you're seeing even in countries that are already opening up, people are going to amusement parks or booking their tickets to cruises already. It's a little wild how quickly people are willing to get back into big groups. But I don't think we're going to see. I don't think we're going to see conferences in 2020. I'm almost sure of that. We may not even see them in 2021, because if you really think about what it takes to run a conference, just the amount of time that you need to promote and get people, to be aware of the event, to organize all the content, you need a long time to do that. And in order to even start promoting it, like, the world needs to open up, international travel needs to be comfortable again. There's just a lot of things that have to happen for the specific kind of event that a conference is to happen. And so we're switching all of our events. We already have to virtual for 2020. We're going to be switching CMX Summit to virtual in 2020. And 2021, we're kind of like planning for both. We might have the in-person events, but we're already going to be planning for what's all of our virtual event programming in 2021. And as soon as, and then for our local chapters, we're giving them the ability to decide for themselves if they want to start to bring their meetups back as their local communities become more safe. Two, virtual events are here to stay. It's not just like a during coronavirus thing that everyone's switching to. I actually think companies are sleeping on the value of virtual events before. No, you're not going to be able to get all the great things that you get from a in-person event online. You're not going to get the the serendipity passing someone in a hall. You're not going to be able to see their body language. If you're sitting in a circle, I can look around and see how people are responding to what I'm saying. You don't get that on Zoom. But virtual events, one, you can drive massive numbers, right? Like, we've been running our conference for 6 years. We've hosted 10 conferences. Our virtual conference was 3 times the size of our last biggest conference. And so you can reach more people. It's more accessible. There's no limit on stage space. So from a marketing perspective, from a business growth perspective, you're actually able to drive a whole lot of value and make your events more accessible to more people around the world. And so what I think you're going to see is more of a hybrid approach after coronavirus, where people are doing both in person and virtual. So build virtual into your strategy. But also, we're going to have to start getting creative. I gave this talk, like a similar talk, a week ago, and I had to change the slide because I said there was going to be Zoom fatigue. And man, like, there's already Zoom fatigue. I think everyone's feeling it, right? Like, I want to see my friends really bad, but I just don't want to do another Zoom call. And so start getting creative. There's a lot of really unique tools out there that you can use for speed networking, for discussion groups, different ways of gathering people that isn't just going to be the standard Zoom format. So we're going to have to start getting creative about different ways to give people experiences. I know someone who's doing, just no video talk, so you can just listen to people. So after a long day of work, you don't have to watch the screen. You can just sit on your couch and talk to groups of people or listen to a talk. That kind of thing might be more valuable to people. Fourth, there's going to be an increased attention on ROI of communities as economy recovers. So it's like this weird thing that's happening simultaneously. Every company is like, shoot, we need online community as quickly as possible. We need to invest in this. This is super important. But, the economy is really risky right now, and a lot of companies have had layoffs. And so everyone's going to be watching the budget tightly. And similar for DEI and for community, it's kind of the same challenge of showing, like, how does this actually drive value for our organization? This is going to become even more important than it already was before, so that we can build community that helps us actually achieve business goals and justify the investment. And then last, community teams are going to become a core part of every business. Like I said, we've already seen that trend happening leading up to the pandemic. And I think this crisis has really shown a light on why it has been so important. The companies that didn't have any sort of online community, they didn't have a place for their community to gather during this crisis, and they kind of scrambled to get it together. But the companies that have been investing in community for a long time, it became a conversation. They were able to communicate frequently with their community through the crisis. Their customers were able to come together and support each other through the crisis. And I mean, we're seeing these massive programs like the Salesforce and Duolingo programs that, you can't ignore that there's a ton of value there to be had. So community is going to become a critical part of every business, but we just got to make sure that we're tying it back to that business value as well as the member value. All right. So just 3 things to focus on as you move forward. 1, keep practicing self-care. You can't build community if you don't take care of yourself. You can't fill up others' cups if yours isn't full. So Andy had a great point at the end there, just like, don't worry about building community until you feel good and you're taking care of yourself, and then start thinking about how to bring your communities together. 2, lean into virtual. It's here to stay, and there's a whole ocean of opportunity to get really creative with virtual experiences. So it's going to be a part of your business strategy in the future. Start experimenting with it now. And 3, just remember to focus on that business impact. We all build community because it's the most important thing in the world, in my opinion. But for a business to continue to invest in it and drive budget towards it, we need to make sure we're tying that community back to business impact. We have tons and tons of content on CMX about how to do that, how to make your community successful. So go to cmxhub.com, like loads and loads of free content and events. So we're here to help with that. Or like I said, at David Spinks on Twitter, shoot me all your questions. And I'll leave you with this. The world needs community more than ever before. So I hope you all lean into that. You all build your communities. Thank you for all the work you're doing in DEI and in community building. And all right. I think that's all I got, Melinda.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, all right.
David.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.